things of nature, things of that 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 nature.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the pod of that nature, the post-game edition after Arkansas just absolutely throttles UAPB 70-0. Woo! 70-0. Yeah, you heard that right in case you didn't watch on this Thursday evening. Just a dominant performance from the Razorbacks to move to 1-0 on the season. I am Curtis Wilkerson. I'm joined by Andrew Ellis, and we want to come on here and not necessarily break down the game detail by detail or do a live reaction. We already did that with a post-game show, but we want to come through here and kind of talk positions. We want to do our report card. We're going to go through it. We're going to grade this thing. I'll tell you right now, we might be easy teachers for this one, but this will get a lot more spicy, I think, as we go on throughout the course of the season. The grades are going to be high. Spoiler alert, it was 70-0, and then we're going to hand out some post-game awards. Andrew, how was this for an opening night of college football for the Razorbacks?
I really don't think it could have gone better, Curtis. You know, obviously there's plays here and there. Oh, you know, Tashawn Green missed a few throws. Yeah, you'd want to clean some things up. Hey, Jaden Johnson, maybe don't push a guy in the back when Satania's already in the end zone. We don't really need all that. But realistically speaking, from a big picture standpoint, you score on every drive. You don't have any weird major injuries. You don't have a bunch of problems arise. I definitely feel a lot better than I did coming away from Arkansas' season opener in Little Rock a year ago.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's jump right into the report card here. We're just going to kind of go overall, general, and then we'll hop into the positions. We're not going to do the individual player thing. It would take us all night. But I mean, overall, are we in agreement that this? I mean, it's an A performance from the Razorbacks, right? I mean, you didn't do too much wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where we would be docking those points unless you want to count a few incompletions on drives that eventually ended in touchdowns here and there. But yeah, I don't know how it could have realistically been any better. And really on the defensive side, I'm willing to overlook any mistakes because playing defense in college football against anyone is just so hard, man. And so to hold someone to 0 points, and really they didn't get particularly close on many occasions. The one time they really got inside the 30, they ended up finishing the drive on the opposite side of the field. And so, yeah, man, I was really impressed all the way around. I mean, again, we know the context. We're not under any illusion that it's like, oh, wow, they accomplished some crazy feat here tonight. We know who they were playing, but given the circumstances, it still was about as good as it could have possibly gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Gotta feel good when it looks good, man. So let's go just kind of position by position through this and put our marks on it. We'll start with the offense. And it's interesting because I just said, I think everything's going to get an A, but we're going to start with quarterback. And for me personally, taking all three guys into account, Tashawn Green, Malachi Singleton, and KJ Jackson, all three played in this game and got some pretty decent run, actually. I would still give this group, I mean, I probably would go a solid A for him, to be honest with you. I was really impressed with Malachi Singleton. Thought he was super, super accurate. Thought he was in command, composed for a guy who hasn't taken a snap in 2 years. The freshman, KJ Jackson, big lefty. He looks the part, man. He might be the future at the position. And Tashawn Green, you look up at the end of the night and he's completed 70% of his passes, threw for over 200, ran for almost 90, had some touchdowns. But I might go A- for this because I just feel like there were some throws that Tashawn Green missed that he's not going to be able to get away with against better competition.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to overlook the start. I mean, he started 6 of 11, but there were some clear misses here and there. I mean, the first play of the game, you feel like Arkansas has a decent chance for a touchdown. They had talked about, hyped up, like, oh, I already know the first play. He had Tyrone Broden, underthrows him there. Was it the wind? I don't know. Who's to say? Maybe some first game jitters, but for Tashawn Green, he showed us kind of the full spectrum of what we've been seeing. I mean, the kind of player that he's hyped up as, super athletic, has all the traits. I mean, can throw on the run, really has command of the offense. We saw all of that, and we saw the guy who was also a 59% passer at Boise State last year, and that's kind of the accuracy is really the one big concern, if you will. And I definitely think early on you started seeing that, and you're like, man, I don't know, like everything else you feel really good about, but there were some throws there. And so I guess that's one of the more weirdly encouraging things about this team offensively is that it was self-inflicted mistakes there. And so for Tashawn, I'm not going to lose too much sleep over missing a few throws against UAPB, but like you said, Not something he can make a habit of moving forward too much. And we've seen this plague him in the past. So that's why it's hard to overlook it here. But overall, when you look at the group, I mean, they throw for 408 yards as a group, complete 76% of their passes. Only 2 touchdowns, though, both of which came from Tashawn Green. So bums, if you ask me. But yeah, Malachi Singleton, man, it's hard. I mean, I think honestly, and it's crazy to say this, the second and third guys bring the average for the group way up. I think for Tashawn, if I was just grading him by himself, I probably would be more in that kind of B- range of like,
agreed.
Some good there, maybe a B if you want to be nice. I mean, he did have 88 rushing yards. We can't ignore that. Had some pretty good highlight plays. That'll get the fan base excited for sure. But I think those second and third guys, I don't know how you could have asked for a better performance out of 2 guys making their collegiate debuts. And for Malachi Singleton, a guy who hasn't really played football in, over 2 years. And so really impressive. I thought Singleton was really decisive, really accurate. These are the things we've been seeing out of him. And KJ Jackson, I mean, 1 drive, 90-yard touchdown. It's hard to ask for much more out of those young guys.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think I'm right there with you. Had it been a situation where Tashawn Green comes out of that game and they bring in Singleton, they just say, okay, hand it off 13 times and let's go home, I probably would have rated the quarterbacks at probably a B or so. But yeah, total package, sure. I think I'm in for an A-. Pretty solid day's work. Running backs, Quinton Jackson, buddy, he's the real deal. I don't think there's any question about that. Man, we know how powerful of a running back he is. He can run over you, through you, around you, whatever he needs to do. Was catching the ball out of the backfield a little bit today. I mean, he did a little bit of everything, and he threw a little wave at the cheerleaders after scoring a touchdown. Absolutely love me some Quinton Jackson, and was honestly pretty impressed with a couple of guys behind him, not named Rashad Dubinion. Rodney Hill, impressed. I mean, Bobby Petrino says he brings a different flavor. I agree. I think he's going to help him. And Braylon Russell, as Sam Pittman likes to say, it's a big load coming at you.
Yeah, Braylon Russell, I was surprised that he only had 3 carries in this game because I feel like all 3 of his carries, I remember them very vividly. And I was like, oh, there's Braylon Russell. There was usually a defender falling down in those carries as well. Good to see him get in the end zone. Tyrell Reed also got in the end zone, the Hutchinson transfer. So good for him. Yeah. Everyone, they shared the wealth a little bit. But yeah, you nailed it there, man. Quinton Jackson, as well-rounded a running back as you can have, honestly. You remember when we got to hear from him during fall camp, and he said, I'm kind of tired of people saying I'm a power back. Like, I feel like I've got some change of direction. That's something he's been working on. He showed a little wiggle tonight. He showed off a nice little spin move, made some guys miss in tight areas. Of course, these are not SEC linebackers he was making miss. We're not going to pretend it was. Will he be able to break away and get over the top of a defense like that? Maybe not usually. He's not really a breakaway speed kind of guy, but I mean, he showed off just about every trait you could want your running back to have. I mean, the vision, the decisiveness out of the backfield. I thought he was awesome. He was always getting that extra yard, and I was really glad Arkansas was able to get him out of there in the first half and let some of these guys run. Arkansas rushing, it's kind of weird how much they threw the ball, 37 pass attempts in a game that was really never close. I mean, it's only 28 rushing attempts. Felt like Arkansas, honestly, could have ran the ball for more, weirdly enough. Like, they didn't even crack 300 rushing yards, like somehow. But yeah, all in all, I felt like each running back kind of lived up to the billing that we had built up in our heads for all of them. Braylon Russell being the big load, Rodney Hill being the Zatarans guy who's going to have that flavor and is a pass-catching guy. And we were both a little confused by Rashad Dubinion getting in when he did. But, I mean, nice to see him get his feet wet. We said that about Andrew Armstrong, where we were like, we don't want his first reps to be against Oklahoma State, and though turns out they will be. But for the running back room, I don't know how you don't go A. I can't think of a fault, although I guess Quinton Jackson did technically fumble on his first carry, even though I don't even know if they actually technically ruled it a fumble or if it went right out of bounds. It wasn't no harm, no foul, but I guess that you can knock him for that.
It's funny that you say that because after those first 2 plays when Tashawn Green underthrows a touchdown pass to Tyrone Broden and then Quinton Jackson fumbles out of bounds on the next play, I think I texted you and John was like, okay, what's next? Like, what the hell is really going on here?
Well, what was next, Curtis, was 0 bad plays after that. Like, that was it.
That's exactly right. I'm with you, man. An A for the running backs for sure. Wide receivers, it was interesting. No Andrew Armstrong. He was there, wasn't dressed out, still kind of nursing that hamstring. And there was just kind of guy after guy. Nobody really had a huge game, but everybody kind of had an impact. If you count the tight ends and the running backs, 28 passes were completed. 14 different people caught him. It was kind of wild to see that. Nobody had over 3 receptions, but I don't know. Isaac Tesla, 3 for 53. Jordan Anthony, 3 for 46. Tyrone Broden, 3 for 35. You can continue going down the line. Monty Harrison, welcome from MLB to the SEC. And he had a couple catches there. Shafre Brown got in there. He's a kind of a big dude, made a couple good catches. So, yeah, I mean, he kind of shared the wealth all over the place. I don't know that I'd necessarily qualify some of these as drops, but balls that maybe weren't perfectly placed, but they hit you in the hands. You kind of need to catch them deal. Still, I don't have a lot to complain about with the receivers. I probably A-. I think I would give them, just because I wish they would have just caught every pass. That's all.
Yeah. Next time, just do that, guys. I think
catch every pass.
I think A- is fair. Cause I mean, look, like you said, it's not like we're going to come away from this being like, oh, you know, so-and-so had a huge game. Nobody had a massive performance. I mean, Tesla leads the team in receiving with 53 yards, and he had maybe the most impressive catch of the night there in the fourth quarter down near the goal line. That was pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean, It was about like everyone kind of did their part, but like you said, nobody really blew it away. But I think for a game like this, given the context, that's fine. I mean, you had 4 guys with three or more 3 catches. You had 6 guys with multiple receptions. We even saw Davion Dozier get in there. How about the freshman Cross Johnson, who, like, frankly, we have not heard anything about coming out of camp. Like, it wasn't really like a guy that we were expecting. Like, could he push to be in that rotation? Really, the guy we thought might be in there was CJ Brown, who should have caught his first career touchdown, but Taylor Green missed him there. But yeah, I think that was maybe the most surprising thing to me, is like 2 of the guys that I'm maybe the highest on out of this entire receiver room, Isaiah Satania and CJ Brown, combined for 1 catch. And it was a really nice catch from Isaiah Satania, and he had 1 called back. But I think I saw it playing out a little bit differently. But overall, hard to complain about too much. There's not much to really nitpick here outside of maybe those first 2 possessions.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned it in our post-game show, and I agree with you 100%. Satania, 1 catch for 34 yards. I know he had another one that got called back, but definitely a guy that you want to see them really almost force the issue to get him going, but he's gonna have to be such a big part of this offense. I feel like Taylor Green was really trying to target Tyrone Broden a lot. I think he had 7 targets, but only 3 receptions, almost to where he was forcing the issue. It looked a little bit weird at times there. Armstrong's going to be the security blanket. We know that. That group's going to be fine. Tight ends, that one's always kind of a weird one to evaluate. From a blocking standpoint, I didn't notice anything that was an issue. I mean, the quarterbacks were not under any duress the entire night. And the running backs were averaging like 15 yards a carry. It was ridiculous. So pretty solid there. Ty Washington had the touchdown reception. Luke has, what'd he go for? Where's he at? 3 receptions for 42 yards. Yeah, on 4 targets. Solid day's work. I remember that crossing route over the middle that Taylor Green hit him on, one of his better throws of the night. So I'm probably in the same wavelength with tight ends.
I saw Marquise Gums get in there a little bit. He didn't have a reception. I don't believe he was targeted.
Postal was in there.
Yeah. You mentioned Haz. Like, Haz is one of those guys where it's like, in a game like this, you almost don't want to use him. Whereas Satania, I'm like, you should force feed him. But it's like, Haz is almost like the best kept secret, although everyone knows he's good. But it's like, I feel like in certain matchups against some of the better teams, they're really going to lean on Haz. And we saw that a little bit last year. So if you felt like he was a little quiet tonight, don't worry. You're going to get plenty of Luke Haz action. But yeah, overall, really good stuff. Ty Washington, man, does he have the highest, like, ratio in terms of when he's on the field and when he does good things? The percentage is really high. I feel like every time he's targeted, he catches it, and it's usually for a first down or a touchdown. I mean, one of the first times we ever saw him was in the Liberty Bowl. He catches a touchdown right away. Last year, as soon as they started playing him, he starts making plays. I kind of forgot about him, and then the first play I see him in there, he catches a touchdown from Taylor Green. Yeah, man, it's pretty wild. And shout out to the Denmark native Andreas Posk for getting in there on the first possession, like second play of the game. Yeah. They bring in a second tight end, and it's him. I think that's something that's going to continue to happen. They really like his physicality in the run game. I mean, I think this tight end room kind of gives you a little bit of everything, and they didn't show too much. They kept it, as we like to say, vanilla. But yeah, tight ends, I guess they get an A. I mean, right? Like, they're not going to be the group we're going to knock, right?
No, because they didn't do anything wrong, and they're only they can't control the targets that they get in there. So yeah, I give them an easy A. And now what we like to do with this is we try to reserve, like an A+ for a winning effort and the top position group. For me, personally, I'm giving it to the offensive line. And reason being is because I just think back to last year's opener and the struggles that they had in that same stadium against an FCS opponent, which is way better than UAPB, in fairness. But man, they just couldn't get anything going on the ground. And the offensive line they were getting beat in the trenches. They were losing ground up front. KJ Jefferson was under direct. Like, it just was a disaster. None of that happened in this game. And they had a huge, huge talent advantage. We all know that. So what do? You dominate. And that's exactly what they did. The holes were open. The lanes were there. Some really good blocking. Tashawn Green was not sacked. They only allowed 2 tackles for loss the entire game. I just thought it was really solid. Thought Marion Harris looked good stepping in there at left guard. I was really impressed personally with Keyshawn Blackstock at right tackle. Saw him make a few nice plays, and they limited the penalties. That group, obviously, you have the most questions about, especially on the offense after what happened last year. And me saying they get an A+ in this game doesn't mean I think that they're, going to be world beaters and they're just going to carve up and dominate Oklahoma State in the trenches next week. But damn it, I was proud of them tonight. I thought it was a solid performance.
Listen, there's something to be said about doing your job. As Bill Belichick always says, just do your job. Do what you're supposed to do. And let's be clear about this. This was supposed to happen for Arkansas. At least, I'm not saying they were supposed to win 70-0, but the offensive line was supposed to have their way with the front they were facing, and they did. But we've seen Arkansas a lot of times, especially last year, not have their way with teams they were supposed to have their way with. You mentioned Blackstock. How about the cowboy collar? Did we know that was a thing, that he was going to have a cowboy collar game one? But that's awesome. Love that. I thought the group, it didn't look like a team that was ushering in 4 new starters, which, I mean, with the Marion Harris in there, it is 4 new starters, 3 of which are transfers. You didn't see some of those, that lack of cohesion that you might expect to see for a group that's got a new position coach and a whole new situation there. So yeah, it was syllabus week. They have a 100 A+ on syllabus week, but that's as good as they could have possibly performed in the run game. No matter who was carrying the ball, they had room to work. No matter what quarterback, and the first team offensive line got to work with Malachi Singleton a little bit. It didn't matter what quarterback was behind center, what running back was running the ball, what receiver was being targeted. These skill players at Arkansas had plenty of time to work, and they should against UAPB, but it was nice to see, and it made me feel slightly better about the group. Obviously, they're going to have a much, much stiffer test next week. But overall, I think this will ease people's concerns about the whole, are we sure this Kudus injury is not going to derail the whole season? Are we sure that Marion Harris can handle it and all that? I think this group, at least in terms of week 1, if you didn't have any context, you would just be like, oh, solid offensive line, did what they were supposed to do. And there's something to be said about that. Yeah, no doubt about it. They just got to keep building from here, and obviously they'll get their first real test next week. I mean, nice work by the offense. Shout out to Bobby Petrino on his return debut. A touchdown on every drive, 687 yards. Nice work. Flexing on him, man. I mean, literally could not have gone better, man. Like that's literally video game stuff.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, let's flip the script a little bit here. On defense, I want you to go first with these and give me your grades first, starting with the defensive line, which again, we talked about it with like the keys coming into this game, or the things that we really wanted to see. Well, one was dominating the trenches, and that involves both sides of the ball.
Yeah. I mean, defensive line, again, you're supposed to dominate this matchup. You have more size, physicality, athleticism in the opposition. So we're not going to throw you a parade for dominating, but it's exactly what this Arkansas defensive line did. I think depth is kind of a big concern for this group and something that we're going to have to see throughout the year. But I think it was really encouraging that you were able to rotate different guys in. We saw first, second, third team kind of all have success at different points. UAPB finished with 7 rushing yards, Curtis. 7. And Arkansas had 4 sacks, kind of spread it around. I know the linebackers had a couple of those sacks, but it felt like the defensive line, I just didn't see much room to operate there for that UAPB offense. It felt like when they were attacking the Arkansas defense, it was out on the edge, out on the perimeter, or maybe even down the field a little bit. But it wasn't like this. There was a ton of room for them to operate in the run game, and we saw that play out. Really stifled them completely. I mean, hard to complain about that. So again, it's one of those. We know that it wasn't a great test. We know that they were supposed to do what they did, but they showed up and got the job done, man. And for a group, I mean, that front 7 is kind of where all of our concerns lied in the offseason. And if you just showed us that game with no context, you would think the front 7 was one of the strengths of the team, frankly. So I'm gonna go with like a solid A for the D line. Like not an A+, They're not the best group, but I mean, do you have any complaints from that group? I mean, other than maybe some of your guys in that second tier outside of Landon Jackson and Nico Davier, who was freaking maybe the player of the game. He was phenomenal. You didn't see much from June Kaj, Jaffrard, or Quincy Rhodes. Is that maybe the one complaint you have?
I think so. Yeah, that's probably where I'm at. It was weird that Landon Jackson only had 1 tackle in this game, but obviously you're not worried about him at all. Yeah, I mean, Nico won, I guess you could say, that position battle with Anton Junkaj. He got the start. Both of them played quite a bit, but you're right. Like, Nico was an animal in there like that. I felt so bad for that right tackle for UAPB. Couldn't do anything with him. If Nico wanted to run through him, he would do that. If he wanted to make one swim move and get around him, he would do that. Just dominated that guy the entire game. Nico is super athletic at that position. I don't know if it was just the talent difference that made that stand out to me, or if that'll be something that we really see pop, in some games against better competition. I hope that's the case. Cam Ball, love it. Eric Gregory got the sack on the first possession there. So that's good. You like to see it. I thought Kiwi Rose looked good in there as a rotational defensive tackle. I'm with you. I would like to see June Kaj in the backfield more. I wonder if it's going to be a situation with him, like at the beginning of spring ball, he was out there, but he was just kind of out there. But then towards the end of spring, you get to the spring game, he was kind of in the backfield a lot. So maybe it's a situation where he settles in and starts to have more of an impact as we move forward. Ian Jaffrard, it's weird with him. I love seeing him out there because he's just so big. He's just such a huge man. But like early on in his first rotation, when I saw him out there, he got flattened by a UAPB offensive lineman. I was like, oh, that didn't look good. He just had no leverage, lost his balance, and got ran over. But then he swallows a guy, in the hole, and he gets another stop in the backfield. So you can see the potential there, but is he ready for the SEC? It's like after they get past the Cam Ball and the Eric Gregory and the Kiwi Rose, it's like how much they really like they're an injury away from this being really weird. I think up the middle. So I'm with you though. I mean, they dominated the line of scrimmage and UAPB couldn't get anything going. So a solid A, but it's definitely something I kind of have a brow raise for as we move forward into week 2 and some more stiff competition. What did you think about these linebackers? Because there's one word for them that jumps off the page at me, but I'm just curious what your takeaways were on the linebackers.
Well, I feel like that word for you is probably going to be fast, right? I mean, that was the one thing, man. The one thing that we heard about Sori, because you can never tell when you're getting a guy that's coming from a big program. It's always a question of, did he leave because he wasn't going to play? Did they not like him? Whatever. What we've been hearing a lot, at least behind the scenes and kind of from other people, is Georgia was not thrilled about losing Xavier Sori. And one of the things that I kept hearing that people would say is he plays so hard. And I think that was the one thing that jumped off to me. He covers sideline to sideline, but he just felt like he was a bat out of hell sometimes. Steven Dix, the Marshall transfer, I thought was outstanding. Anthony Switzer, I'm going to be honest with you. I saw him out there a few times. Kind of expected him to flash a little bit more. But I thought Brad Spence had 4 tackles, which was, besides Nico, I think the most on the team. I felt like each guy kind of did their part a little bit. Bradley Shaw getting in there, the true freshman, it seems like they got something there. Because, I mean, with linebackers, if you're even borderline playable as a true freshman, that's a really good sign for a linebacker, frankly. Yep. So the fact that Bradley Shaw, we saw him on the depth chart as an or next to Switzer, which frankly seemed valid after seeing him play today, I think that's an encouraging sign. And all of a sudden, man, it's kind of crazy because all offseason we kind of wondered, are they going to have any options at linebacker? What happens if one guy gets hurt? And I'm not saying it's going to be like the 85 Bears or anything, but I feel like this team's got 3, 4, 5 maybe options of guys that they at least feel comfortable putting out there. And, they showed up and showed out today. I feel like if it weren't for the offensive line, that might have been the most impressive position group overall for me.
Yeah, I think I'm probably with you on that, man. Like I was really happy with what the defensive line did. But the linebackers, yeah, they pop more to me. And the numbers on the stat sheet don't go crazy. It was just one of those games where it wasn't your typical game in terms of where tackles were going to come from and everything like that. UAPB is just bad. But yeah, I mean, those guys are really flying around. Love the instincts. I think Spence, he really impressed me with the way he was meeting guys in the hole. You were talking about Sori, and I really like, he kind of seems like he has a nose for the ball. He's just kind of always around and in on the play. And I mentioned Steven Dix in the post game, but he impressed me more than anybody. And I just haven't seen much of him, so I didn't know. But that dude is fast, man. And when he gets ahead of steam and gets downhill, doesn't look like a guy that I would like to be hit by either. So I really like that trio there. I agree with you on Switzer. I saw him out there a couple times, didn't see him do a lot. I see he had a half tackle for loss. He's small-ish for an SEC linebacker, so I'm anxious to see how that plays. But obviously talented and accomplished. And yeah, the Bradley Shaw thing was awesome, man. So yeah, I'm in on an A, I think, too, for the linebackers. The interesting one on the defense for me would be the secondary. Because if you look at the numbers, I mean, the quarterback for UAPB goes 11 for 23, 123 yards. He really didn't have much going on. I think his longest, what was his longest reception? 21 yards was the longest pass that he threw there. I don't know that Arkansas's defensive backs were really challenged. I just didn't feel like they had to make many plays. There were a couple times though, where, you know, maybe against better competition, they would have been in some trouble. What do you think about them?
So Curtis, we've been pumping out a lot of sunshine here. A lot of sunshine. We've been as fair as we can be. I think I'm giving them a B+, Curtis. I'm not giving them a full A. Can't give them a full A yet.
I'm not mad at you.
Didn't pick off a pass, which, like, no disrespect. You picked off a lot of passes last year, UAPB. That's maybe the one stunning thing to me is that UAPB didn't turn the ball over. And really, the quarterback didn't have time to do much, frankly. I feel like a lot of the secondary and the fact that he was struggling, I think he completed under 50% of his passes. I feel like the secondary really benefited from the work that those guys up front were doing. And I do want to be clear, like the secondary is the position group we felt maybe the best about on this defense, where we were like, they kind of have options. They have depth out there. We see that cornerback battle playing out. I feel like Marquise Robinson's the guy, and I think we probably need to just move forward assuming he is the guy. Jalen Braxton, I saw him have to make one tackle, and he seemed like so annoyed that like a guy caught a ball anywhere near him, which I really appreciated. You know, nothing to, I don't have any nitpicks, like real concerns or anything like that. Although Danico Slaughter probably should have given up a touchdown on that one play. He got burnt and the guy just kind of overthrew him. Jaden Johnson tried to give up a touchdown, but the quarterback ran out of bounds. It wasn't like a concerning performance. Wasn't a bad one. They didn't really give up much, like you said, but I can't go full A. I'm going B+ for them. I thought they were pretty good for the most part.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see how it looks. Well, like with anybody, is when they get into some tougher games here. TJ Metcalf got the start over Hudson Clark. I didn't necessarily notice him out there in terms of big time playmaker, but he just
didn't make one tackle.
Yeah, it's just kind of hard to gauge in a game like that, I think. But I do have a question before we move on. And I think I agree with your grade. This is not going to be the post game report card that we argue with each other about the position grades. It's just there's not really much to say here. Did Larry Worth play?
I saw him in at least once. Okay. I remember seeing him in there, but he was one of those where it was kind of funny, where I was saying this on the show, the Inside Arkansas live show earlier today, where I was like, who's going to be like the guy we're talking about tomorrow as like, oh yeah, didn't expect to see that guy. He's the guy that I'm talking about, where like him and Switzer, I feel like were kind of the stories of fall camp, where it was like, hey, these guys and their versatility are like this huge thing. You didn't really see much out of them. And to be fair, like we said, the secondary wasn't tested much. Right. I don't even know if he was targeted in coverage once. But I think that's going to be a big question for Arkansas kind of moving forward. Not a question mark, like a concern, but that's a guy, a former linebacker, who's going to be playing the nickel position, potentially, maybe some safety. We'll see what that looks like. We'll see what he looks like when he's really being tested. But yeah, not much to evaluate really with this Arkansas secondary and with Worth in particular. Yeah, for sure. Special teams real quick. Listen, I don't know, C+. And if you have a punt return for a touchdown that gets called back for any reason, then I'm docking you at least a full letter grade from what I would have given you initially. I don't care. Jaden Johnson, it's on you, dude. Like, I don't know what to say. That just frustrates me to no end. But no, like in all seriousness, I don't know C+ if that's fair or not, B-, whatever. But I'm actually really surprised that Arkansas didn't get more out of their punt return game. They didn't really have any opportunities for kick return, but at the same time, that punter for UAPB really struggled too. But you know, kicker wise, we were surprised to see Kyle Ramsey, or at least I was, over Matthew Shipley. Didn't get a field goal attempt. That we talked about that again on Inside Arkansas Live, the post game.
about, I don't know how I feel about the first field goal of the year happening on the road in Stillwater, but whatever. He was 10 of 10 on his extra points.
You know how when PFF does their grade and there'll be like the guy who played 4 plays, and if he gave up a touchdown, his grade is like 23. And if he scored a touchdown, his grade is 97. And people are like, oh, whoa, wow, this guy. That's what this special teams feels like, because there's not much to evaluate again. You have a handful of punt returns, one of which went back for a touchdown and was called back, which I agree. Jaden Johnson, who was like the MVP of last year's season opener in War Memorial, not a great showing for Jaden Johnson, who, by the way, Curtis, did you notice he was the guy with the earpiece? He was the guy communicating to the defense. Jaden Johnson, coach, extension of the coaching staff.
Exactly right.
So that's a good sign for him moving forward. But yeah, not a great showing from Jaden Johnson, especially on special teams. But yeah, we don't have much to evaluate, and the few things we do weren't great, or I guess the one real play there was not great. The reason I'm going to go B- is because almost every kick went through the back of the end zone, but then you had the one kick that they did field. Shout out to Dallas Young, redshirt freshman, who made, I guess, his first career tackle. Nice little play on the kickoff, held him, got him inside the 20. I felt like that was nice. And you didn't miss any extra points, so I can't knock it too bad, but I'm going to go B-. How about that?
Devin Bell, was he every kickoff?
Yes. I think, right? I mean, let's see.
So. He definitely started. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I checked after the first one, and I know he did the first one. Yeah, I just assume he did. Although I will say, but we should mention the punt returns, by the way, actually, because I completely forgot about that. Arkansas had 3 different punt returners. Bryce Stevens almost housed one.
Oh, my God.
I completely forgot about that. Bryce Stevens almost housed one and tripped and fell at the 5-yard line. And then obviously that one also got called back. But Dylan has nice little fair catch at the 11-yard line. Shout out to Dylan has. Sam had like a goofy little smile on his face after that, where he's like, ha.
Now there were 2 long punt returns that got called back. That's C range, buddy.
Yeah, never. I'm bumming it. I forgot about the Bryce Stevens play until I was doing the rant and got to it, and then I was like, oh yeah, they did have that. I kind of had like a little bit of a moment where I was like, number 14 for that's Bryce Stevens. Wow.
I know. Oh, he exists. He's out there. Okay.
Who has housed kicks? He's housed punts in his career before. He housed one against Bobby Petrino, didn't he?
Bobby, yeah, he sure did. Saved the game and the season at that point. So, okay, well let's move on here real quick and get into just a few post-game awards from this one. And again, it's weird because it was a 70-0 game. Let's do offensive MVP, offensive player of the game. What do you got?
So I went with Jaquin Jackson here simply because I don't know how he could have performed better other than not having that fake fumble on the first play. He showed you a little bit of everything. He got out of there before halftime, 8 carries, 101 yards, broke off a long one, made guys miss, broke tackles. No notes. Jaquin Jackson, I'm a fan of your work, sir.
Yeah, I would like to be different, but I can't in this case. I mean, Jaquin, he stood out above everybody, like even his own teammates. He's really, really good. I think he's going to have a special year. I can't argue with that one. Offensive MVP, Jaquin Jackson. Defensive,
your only other option, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think so.
Or Malachi Singleton. I mean, I don't know, Malachi Singleton was about as good as you could ask for.
I got something for Malachi in a minute. Defensive MVP, though. What do you think? I think we're going to go the same way again, I'm afraid. Let's see, though.
Are we?
I think so.
Well, I'm going Nico Davier, actually.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, are you? I thought you were going to go with a linebacker, but no, I'm going Nico. One, just because like when and part of the criteria I'm using, and I'll keep that in mind when we're doing Newcomer and all that, is like the most impactful performance, because it's like I think Nico being good is such a positive development for this Arkansas team. Like we did that podcast on Pod of That Nature where we were saying if you could guarantee one guy to have a good season, who would you pick? And we kind of made our picks. Nico would be at the top of that list. Now, maybe not the top, but like in that range where it's like, if we guarantee Nico Davier is good, we feel a lot better about this D line. And so his performance he was always like 20 minutes from his hometown. He got to be the captain for the game. For him to show up the way he did, I thought was a really positive development. And I mean, he was just all over the field, man. He was making tackles downfield. You don't see a D lineman who only plays the first half lead the team in tackles much. But that says a lot about how active Nico Davier was. Although he didn't have one of Arkansas's 4 sacks, I thought he was the best player on the field for Arkansas defensively.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't even really considering anybody else. And yeah, like some of those linebackers stood out, but it just wasn't a game where they were super, super impactful because they didn't have to be. Nothing was getting to the second level. So what are you going to do, right? Did anybody have more than one sack? No. Yeah. So
Spread
yeah,
them out, man. They spread out the receptions, spread out the sacks, and spread out the punt returns.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good on Nico, man. That was pretty impressive. How about let's go freshman of the game.
So does Malachi Singleton count as a freshman?
Hell yeah, he counts.
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I'll still go Braylon Russell. Even though Braylon Russell only carried the ball 3 times, his 3 carries were awesome. Like, they were awesome.
They were memorable.
I really like Braylon Russell, and I know you're going to pick Singleton, so I'm just going to let you do the Singleton bit. But he was freaking awesome, dude. He was lights out, super accurate. He was everything that we had built him as like the perfect. I don't mean this disrespectfully. Malachi Singleton was like built in a lab to be a really good backup quarterback.
Yes.
And I think he's going to be a good starter when his career is all said and done. But like in terms of a guy that you can just give the offense to and just be like, hey, go fill in real quick. Super smart, super decisive, super accurate. Those traits give him a very high floor. I really like Malachi Singleton.
Oh, no doubt about it. He came in and didn't miss a beat. He had no jitters. He wasn't shook at all. For a guy who hasn't taken a snap in 2 years, he didn't play his senior year of high school because of an injury. And so for him to come out and go 8 of 10 for 120 and have a rushing touchdown, didn't stifle the flow of the offense. You remember this game a few years ago after halftime, Malik Hornsby runs out there and they didn't score the whole damn second half under his leadership of the offense. Malachi Singleton didn't miss a beat. And, you know, like you've mentioned, was just really happy that they kind of let him rock a little bit because Tashawn Green is going to be running the football. His body is going to be at risk a lot. There is going to be a point this season against an SEC team or an Oklahoma State type team or whatever, where Malachi Singleton is going to have to come in and give you meaningful snaps. And he hadn't taken any in college. And so for him to come in and they let him throw and they trust him to command the offense and he just looks poised and in charge, was just super, super impressed with him and everything he brought to the table. I get it. He's a redshirt freshman, but he didn't play last year, so it counts. And if I couldn't use him, then I'd probably go KJ Jackson, to be honest with you, because, man, that drive he led down the field was impressive too, and he just looks the part. Like, it stinks in a way because Malachi Singleton looks so good. And so I think, you know, a year of Malachi Singleton at quarterback, you'd probably be okay. But KJ Jackson, you just look at him and you're like, this dude has the upside and the higher ceiling. He's going to be really good. I think
it's going to be a fun position battle in, you know, maybe it's this upcoming spring, maybe it's the one after, but those two guys, man, I wouldn't want to be either one of them. Like, I don't think either of those guys can feel safe. Those are two really nice options. And I think Petrino likes both.
No doubt about it. Let's get into just a couple more real quick. What about a newcomer of the game? So not a freshman, just a transfer of the game. We'll call it that.
Well, we already named Quentin Jackson MVP.
Exactly. So, we got to go different.
You know, fair enough. And Tashawn Green, we know you're a newcomer. We know you're a transfer. We'll give you plenty of awards throughout the year. Curtis, I'm going Steven Dix. And here's why I'm going Steven Dix, for the same reason I went with Nico, of what's the most positive development you can have. Arkansas adding a legitimate linebacker who we feel like we can count on. Like, that's a big deal. And I feel like Steven Dix, of course, it's UAPB. He's going to face better competition, but his performance tonight made me feel better about the Arkansas linebacker room. I feel like he's really going to be in that mix, Mr. Dix. So, yeah, I was really encouraged by his performance. And frankly, he looked more like an SEC linebacker than I thought he would, frankly, even though I know he looks the part. Like, that's always been his thing, is he looks like an SEC linebacker, but just out there playing, man, you mentioned the speed. Like, I was really encouraged with what I saw from Mr. Dix.
Yeah. And I'll go on the offensive side of the ball, and it's kind of tough to hand out a post-game award to an offensive lineman. There's only so many things you can go off of. I do want to give a shout out to Addison Nichols, because I don't recall any issues there with snaps or anything like that. Maybe I missed something, but I got to go with Keyshawn Blackstock. Usually you go throughout the course of a game, and if you have to say an offensive lineman's name, it's because they had a false start, or they held, or they screwed something up and they whiffed a block. I say Keyshawn Blackstock's name multiple times because of plays that he was making and blocks that he was making that led to multiple Arkansas touchdowns. And so I really wasn't that sold on Blackstock. I think he was a JUCO guy, and then he was at Michigan State, and he didn't really play that much or what, but like, there wasn't a whole lot of proven production there. He was just at a Big Ten school, but I thought he looked really good in his debut, and Arkansas is going to need him to continue to be good moving forward. So I think I'll go there. The last two here, I want to go play of the game first. So play of the game first. What's your play of the game? There's a lot to choose from.
So everyone's going to say the Tashawn Green run, and the Tashawn Green run was awesome. It really was. It was like a 34-second play, which you just don't see often. I mean, he literally started on one side of the field, went all the way to the other. But my favorite play of the game from Tashawn Green was his touchdown to Ty Washington, throwing on the run to his left side, kind of cross body, maybe the most well-placed ball he threw all night. Showed off some of that touch that really has been kind of the question mark of does he have that? Does he have that ability to kind of take something off of it and fit it in there? I thought it was perfect. And it was really the moment where I was like, okay, the dude's in a groove now. I think by that point, he had a stretch where he completed 7 straight passes, which is kind of interesting for a guy that started slow and has accuracy, concerns. 7 straight passes. I believe this might have even been 6 or 7 on that list. I thought that throw to Ty Washington was an absolute doozy. And Ty Washington, man, just continues to do cool things. What an awesome player, man. I really like watching him play.
Yeah, he's good at doing cool things, no doubt about it. I would say, I mean, the Tesla catch was unreal. Everything that happened in this game was inconsequential, and I realized that was late, but that one-handed grab was nuts. So it'd probably be hard for me to go with anything other than that, only because what I wanted to end on was moment of the game, and for me, it was Quentin Jackson's touchdown run and then his subsequent wave to the UAPB cheerleaders after he got in the end zone. I mean, come on now.
That's the correct answer.
That's the one.
That was the correct answer. I like that a lot.
That was a lot of fun. That was cool. And man, how nice does it feel just to talk about a 70-0 win? I mean, Arkansas is going to win more games this year. Gosh, I hope so. And they're going to lose some games too. And we'll get into some debates, and maybe those particular shows that we record will be more interesting or whatever. But just from a person who enjoys Arkansas football, it just feels good to talk about a win like this. They needed it. The program needed it. Sam Pittman needed it. The players needed it for confidence. Doesn't mean anything carries over into next week, but man, you feel good tonight, and you feel good going into the weekend. And for just a little while, Arkansas is at the top of the SEC standings. How about that?
Yeah. No funny business tonight. No funny business from Arkansas. No Arkansas stuff, frankly. They didn't hogs going hogs. They didn't do any of that. And look, does it mean much? Really, no. But like you said, for the next 9 days, for 4 hours, I don't care how long it was, we're the best team in the country today. Yeah. Nobody in the country had a better performance than Arkansas today. I'll even go as far to say I don't know if there's going to be teams that have a better week 1 performance all weekend. But yeah, as an Arkansas fan, it's always fun when you get to watch, because now Arkansas fans get to watch college football, and they're feeling cocky, they're feeling confident. Oh, my team look great. Oh, look at these teams. Oh, Florida's losing in their opening game. How about that? Oh, LSU's about to lose. You get to kind of feel cool about yourself for 8 or 9 days, and then that anxiety will set in about Oklahoma State. But for now, like you said, man, they needed it, and it was fun, man. It really was fun. And I'm glad that we have real stuff to talk about now, real plays to reference that aren't 2011 wheel routes to Ronnie Wingo. We can talk about real stuff with this actual football team. It does feel good, man. It really does.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And word of advice to everybody who's going to be lathered up and watching college football this weekend, that's going to be me too. Just like you shouldn't read too much into a game like this, don't read too much into it when Oklahoma State gets scored on by some jackrabbits this weekend. South Dakota State's pretty good. And
yeah, they got a real game, man.
It's going to be, I don't think it's going to be on Prime versus North Dakota State level, which we saw earlier tonight. That was wild. If it is, I guess I wouldn't be totally shocked. I think Oklahoma State's going to win fairly comfortably, but yeah, this is a bigger test for them than UAPB was for Arkansas. But either way, the Hogs are 1-0 and Oklahoma State's not. And so that's all that matters right now. And we're done talking about it. And quite frankly, because we're just going to continue to talk about it in the coming days. So we're going to get out of here, but we appreciate everybody for tuning in and rocking with us always. Make sure you get subscribed to our YouTube channel, Inside Arkansas. This has been the Pod of That Nature, our post-game report card and player awards, and we will see you guys next week. Everybody have a good one.